What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 video, and in this video we're going to be continuing the Noob Guide series for Guild Wars 2. So this last time we talked about skills and traits, and that's basically one part of your build. Basically you've got the build is anything that's not cosmetic about your character, so the things that are actually going to be helping you fight. So let's talk a little bit about the other aspect of the build that I did not cover in my first video. The first time we talked about skills, which are these, and traits, which are these. And we talked about how we can choose them and how they can actually make a good build. This time we're going to talk about gear and attributes, okay? So, or gear and stats. So, I've got my gear here, and I'm going to be talking about my stats first, okay? And we are in a very low level zone, so don't worry about the actual numbers here, because I'm just going to tell you basically what the effects are at level 80, okay? So because our effective level is 5, all right? So you've got a number of attributes, okay, and there are some that have a base and some that do not have a base. The ones that have a base are the things that you need, such as health. You need base toughness, you need base power, you need you actually don't need base precision, but I think you do actually get some base. You don't need base ferocity, you don't need base condition damage, boon duration, or condition duration, or anything like that. And we'll talk about those as we get into them. But we're going to talk about each one individually, and we're going to start with power, alright? So oh cool, it actually shows me my actual number, which is cool. Alright, so power is the main damage attribute, and your base at level 80 is 1000. Everybody's base at level 80 is 1000, alright? And power is just basically a factor of the direct damage that you can inflict. Not based on critical hits or anything, just base, just chunks of damage. Power is the main stat for that, alright? And the base is 100, so, and it scales linearly. So, if I've got 2080 power, that means that my power is 108% higher than somebody that doesn't have any extra base power. That's just my raw damage is 108% higher than somebody that doesn't have any base power, any extra power, okay? That is just at base power. Now power, it can be increased by many things. Actually, a lot of these attributes, I think all of these attributes can actually be increased by many things, except with the exception of Agony Resistance. So just keep that in mind, that there are many ways to increase all of these attributes, and we're going to get into them. Next is the unique thing that we will talk about probably near the end, because it's not really relevant to everybody. Because not everybody actually works with that in their build, but we will talk about it when we get to the end. Next is toughness. All right, so we talked about the offense, right? That's power, that's amount of direct damage that you can deal. Next is toughness, and toughness is added to your defense. Okay, so toughness is not defense; they're not the same thing. You do have base toughness, you do not have base defense. Defense is the bonus that you get from your armor. Do you see this on my armor? It says Assassin's Miscrim of the Eagle, defense 121, right? Spellbreaker's Redoubt, defense 121. Assassin's Warbeast, Breastplate of the Eagle, legendary by the way, defense 381, all right? And this is affected by the class of armor it is, and also what level the armor is, and also what level of rarity it is. So this is exotic, and so it's not going to be at the same level as ascended or legendary, but it's also going to be much higher than rare or fine or hold on. Below rare there's masterwork, and then fine, and then basic. So I thought there was like a weapon merchant or something like that we could actually go to and look at basic stuff and see what kind of a difference it has. But there is that. I will say, well, okay, so once I get into gear, I'll talk about the rarities. Okay, but this is toughness, all right? So basically toughness gets added to your defense provided from armor, and the base is 1,000 for toughness, and that the toughness plus your defense is your armor. Okay, so keep that in mind. We've got this amount of armor just from our actual armor. Defense. It's really hard even for me to get the terms right, but and then see these trinkets here. These do not increase your defense. They might increase your toughness depending on what stat set they are, but they will not increase your defense. The only things that can increase your defense are actual armor pieces and shields. Okay, shields can actually add to your defense. But basically, defense is more potent than toughness, but toughness can be increased by many, many other things. So your toughness gets added to your defense, and that becomes your armor. So you do that, and then basically in the damage formula, when somebody's doing damage, that number gets divided by your armor. Okay, so that's something definitely that you want to keep in mind. So the higher your toughness is, the more that damage is just getting continuously divided. So very important to have toughness if that's what you want to go to. If you want to be a tank, that's what you want to go for. However, I will say that toughness does not protect against conditions. Conditions in this game are damage over time. There are several conditions that deal damage: bleeding, burning, torment, confusion I believe does a little bit, things like that. And those, poison as well, those will do damage over time, and they are not affected by toughness, okay, because there's that is actually for the next stat, which is vitality. All right, and now vitality is where we start to get this level right here, where we are here, is the level where we start to get into things where you can actually say pretty easily how a certain stat is going to affect you. Okay, so with power, you know that it just linearly scales, but you can't actually say for sure how much damage a certain amount of power is going to amount to, because different skills have different weapon strength, and they scale differently with the amount of power. So a skill that is meant to do more damage, it's going to scale more with your power. It's going to take the base damage plus like whatever, 5 times your power or something like that. And just, that's an example number. It's probably not ever used in that high amount, but that's just an example. We can't actually say for sure how much extra damage it's going to result in. So it's kind of like vague. You don't know. You just know more power is good. Okay. Same thing with toughness. It's really difficult to actually calculate because different attacks from enemies do different amounts of damage, and you're never really sure how much it's going to reduce your damage. All you know is that more toughness is going to reduce the damage that you take, the direct damage. Vitality is different, okay? And you can see these actually correspond to each other. We've got the toughness and armor, okay? It doesn't say the defense for some reason. I'm not sure why. But then we've got vitality and health. Okay, vitality directly increases your health. All right, so basically 1 vitality is 10 health. So you've got, if I had no extra vitality, and I do have a little bit of extra vitality because of one of my daggers is providing it to me, and also I've got a back item and a trinket, an accessory, and both of my rings are increasing my vitality by a tiny bit. So when you have extra vitality, that directly increases the amount of health that you have. So if you have a base, let's just say 19,000 for warrior, it's a little bit more than 19,000, but just to work with it. If you have 19,000 base health, and then you get 100 extra vitality, then it's going to increase your health by 1,000, and you're going to have 20,000 health. Pretty easy, right? And 100 vitality is not even that hard to get, because like this back item alone is getting me 27, right? So if you had vitality on all your stuff, like this one's giving you 49, then you're going to be gaining a lot of extra health. I actually have a soldier's build for Doliak Spellbreaker. Check out the playlist in the description below if you want to check that out. And that just uses a lot of vitality, and it gets up to like 32,000 health as a warrior, and that's a lot. So it directly corresponds. Next, we've got another, and okay, now, hold on, just before I move on, I just wanted to say that basically the vitality is the only defense that you can have, or the most effective defense and the most reliable defense that you can have against conditions. Conditions are not affected by toughness, but they are affected by vitality because they're ticking your health down, and the more health you have, the longer you can defend against the conditions, and the longer that you can have to react against the conditions and cleanse them away from yourself if you need to, or just simply wait them out if you can afford to. Next stat we're going to talk about is another offensive one, and it's precision, and this directly increases critical hit chance. This is another one that you could reliably predict how it's going to affect you. You can see these are like scaled down values, but you can see my real precision is 2379. I don't remember what the base, I think it's base 1000 precision. I can actually check. Alright, I thought I could check, but the base critical chance is 5% at level 80. I don't know if it's lower or higher at lower levels, but I know it's 5% at level 80, and every 15 points of precision is going to give you 1 extra crit chance. So keep that in mind. You've got, if it's 5% and you get something that gives you 15 precision, it's going to be 6%, okay? If you've got no extra precision, your critical hit chance is going to be 5%. It's basically abysmal unless you actually increase it. Now, a lot of stat sets, which we're going to get into after we talk about the attributes, a lot of stat sets actually do increase your precision, but some of them don't. So you've got like one of them that I saw is Harrier Stat Set, which is power, toughness, and ferocity. Ferocity is the next stat set that we're going to talk about. That does not increase your critical hit chance. So keep that in mind. If you're based on damage over time, if you're based on conditions, then you don't necessarily need precision too much. But if you've got a power build and you just want to deal raw chunks of damage and be very bursty, then you need precision. And that's why I choose precision for all my Spellbreaker builds, because I need a lot of critical hits. Your critical hits are going to be the lifeblood of your build as a power warrior or whatever you're playing as. Next, we've got Ferocity, and as you can see, it increases critical damage. Okay, also I noticed that, do you guys notice there's a period on the end of this? Look, it says increased critical hit chance, and there's no period. It says increased critical damage, and there is a period. That's the only one with a period. Literally unplayable. Anyways, so it's going to increase your critical damage, and it's the same scaling factor. From here on out, it's 15 points is going to equal 1% of whatever the thing is. Next, okay, sorry, I was looking up healing power, because anyways, so next, I'm going to talk about the base. The base critical damage is 150%, which means that when you make a critical hit, if it was going to do 100 damage, now it'll do 150 damage. It's difficult to predict because like the weapons have a damage range, so you don't know exactly how much damage it's going to do, but you just know that more ferocity is going to make it so that when you do critical hit, it's going to do more damage. Something very important to keep in mind, and definitely very important for the power builds. I just talked about Cavalier stats that are power, toughness, and ferocity. The reason why I don't like those stats is that power and toughness are great, but then it increases your critical damage, but you don't get any extra critical hit chance. So you've got to mix it with some other kind of stat set if you want it to be viable. If you just do all Cavalier's gear, then your critical hits are going to be insanely powerful, and you're going to have a lot of toughness, but you're never going to actually end up critical hitting except for only 5% of the time. Not very reliable. So it's not really that good of a stat set, in my opinion, unless you mix it with some other things that increase your precision. Okay, next stat we're going to talk about is condition damage. Now, condition damage is another thing. It's another thing. Sorry, I thought I covered all of these, but it's another thing that we can't actually accurately predict. It's sort of like the power of power, but it's for conditions. So it's the power of conditions. I can't believe I said the power of power. That was cheesy. So the power of conditions, and different conditions scale differently with the condition damage skill. So bleeding is going to scale differently from torment, is going to scale differently from poison, is going to scale different from burning, and they're all going to do it differently. So you can't really accurately predict. The main thing to keep in mind is just that more condition damage is just going to make you inflict more damage. It's the same thing with power. More power is going to make you inflict more damage with the power attacks. There are some things that inflict conditions on Warrior, for example, the bleeding, okay, this body blow inflicts bleeding for 12 seconds, okay, and then if I had more condition damage, then it would increase the actual damage of that bleeding. It ticks every second, so it would just do more damage every single second, ignoring armor, okay, so something very cool to keep in mind. Now this next one is healing power, and we're going to talk about that after the other ones, so just hold that for a second, hold that in your mind. Next one is expertise, and that is condition duration. More important than condition damage many times, if you're going for a purely condition build, is condition duration. Basically, if the duration of the conditions is increased, it gives the conditions more chances to tick, more ticks of the health down. Would you rather have 5 ticks of 10 damage to do 50 damage, or would you rather have, hold on, would you rather increase that to 5 ticks of 12 damage and then do 60 damage? Or would you rather have 7 ticks of 10 damage and then do 70 damage? So it's basically like that. Ideally you would want both, and that is why for condition builds there is a stat set called Vipers, which is power, precision, condition damage, and expertise. And so it's giving you the expertise. Basically you're going to do, instead of having to choose between 5 ticks of 12 damage and 7 ticks of 10 damage, now instead you get 7 ticks of 12 damage. So much better in the end. And that's just an example, all right? Just take that with a grain of salt. And expertise is something that you can accurately predict. So 15 points of expertise is going to equal 1% of condition duration. So if you've got bleeding for 100 seconds and you put on if you put on 15 expertise, then it's instead going to tick for 101 seconds and get that extra tick. That's just an example. There's no condition that will tick for 100 seconds, but just to kind of give you a little mental image. Next one is concentration, and it's kind of the opposite of condition damage. Instead of, condition duration, it's actually boon duration. Very helpful in some builds. As you can see, there are some things, for example, if you look at this Banner of Discipline, it's applying 3 seconds of regeneration on me. So if I had boon duration from concentration, then instead of applying 3 seconds, if I could increase it to, let's say, 33% extra boon duration, then instead it would it would grant me 4 seconds of regeneration, and that pulses every 3 seconds. So something to keep in mind if you're playing a support build, if you grant a lot of boons to your allies. Another good one is like Healing Signet grants you resistance. Okay, so if you have an extra 33% boon duration, then instead it's going to give you 8 seconds of resistance instead of 6. Something very good to keep in mind. A good one for Warrior is a pretty good example with, like, I have a Shout Warrior build, it's pretty cool, is For Great Justice. It's going to give you 25 seconds of might, and if you just have 20% extra boon duration, which is not a lot, right? It's easy to get much higher than that, but even 20% is going to increase that to 30 seconds. If you've got the maximum, which is 100%, then you've got 50 seconds of might. It's absolutely insane. So you can actually end up doubling that bonus for 25 seconds because you constantly have that. It's only on a 25-second cooldown, so that's just an example. And again, concentration scales the same way as expertise. So 15 points of concentration equals 1% of boon duration. Okay. Next stat we're going to talk about is healing power. And healing power is another one that is difficult to predict exactly what it will do because it scales differently with different skills. But it's basically going to increase your healing effectiveness on self-heals and outgoing heals. So it can be very powerful, actually, if you're trying to be a healer build. I believe Minstrels is a good stat set. It doesn't provide any extra power, which is kind of crazy, so you just have base power, but you end up getting a lot of, like, toughness and healing power as well. So you end up being very effective with healing skills. And an example of why it's difficult to predict is that, like, Healing Signet, I think at level 80, I think it heals like 382 or something every second, but it scales very, very little. It's like 2% of your healing power or something like that. So you can only just a tiny bit increase the amount that it heals you every second. Whereas other skills like natural healing at level 80, it's going to heal you for like 11,000 or something, and it scales basically like all of your healing power. So instead of healing 11,000, if you have 2,000 healing power, then it will heal you like 13,000. And so, but it's just a one-off heal. It's not like every second like healing Signet is. But just the idea is that it scales differently, okay? And healing power, by the way, also affects regeneration, which is a boon. I probably should make another video after this one talking about boons and conditions, but that's down the road. So regeneration is just health over time, and it's affected by your healing power. So whoever actually casts the regeneration, it uses that person's healing power. So if a support player casts regeneration on you, then it's going to use the healing power of that support player, not your healing power. So you don't need to worry if you don't have any healing power on your own build. Okay, so these NPCs talking. Okay, so anyways, next stat is Agony Resistance, and this is only to be worried about by level 80 characters. If you're not level 80, then you don't need to pay attention to this. But definitely something that you need to keep in mind once you get to level 80. Agony Resistance is pretty important for only one area of the game, and that is Fractals. If you don't know about Fractals are basically this game's version of dungeons, and the game does have dungeons, but they're kind of like dead content. So the stuff that's constantly getting updated are Fractals, okay? And as you go higher and higher in the Fractals, there's a mechanic called Agony, and the Agony will like be inflicted kind of sometimes by just certain attacks that different enemies can inflict agony on you. Sometimes it will just do what we call an agony check, which is where you enter the boss area and it just gives you like 5 seconds of agony, and that's basically, if you don't have enough resistance to it, then it can kill you within like 2 seconds, or it can even kill you within 1 second if you have like really low agony resistance and you go into an area that requires high agony resistance. But if you have enough agony resistance, the maximum that you will ever need is 150. If you have maximum, then it will only tick down 1% of your health every tick. And it's a percentage of your health. It's not like a raw amount of damage, so you can't just get like a lot of vitality, for example, and just withstand it. It's going to take a certain percentage of your health. And at 150 agony resistance, then any amount of agony will always just inflict 1% of your health. There's an additional effect of agony in that it reduces all of your healing by like 80% or something. It's something, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's a lot. So basically, when you're under the effects of agony, the agony resistance doesn't help with the healing reduction. Just don't use your heal skill while you have agony. It's just not even worth it. It just does nothing, and you've got to wait for it to cool down. Whereas you could instead just wait a couple of seconds for the agony to wear off and then get the full heal. So there's that. Next is Magic Find, and Magic Find, it doesn't really have anything to do with any combat at all. It's just basically if you've got a base like chance to find something in a chest, or whatever, anything that you can open, any bag that you can open, loot box, whatever, the Magic Find is going to increase your chance of finding some rare stuff. The higher your Magic Find is, the more rare your drops will be. So if you've got, let's just say you've got 1/10 of 1% chance to get a legendary precursor item. Okay, so if you got a 1/10 of 1% chance, and you have 100 Magic Find, 100% Magic Find, you've now got 2/10 of 1% chance. Okay, so it's just basically increasing by that amount, that percentage. So of course, high Magic Find is a good thing. You get Magic Find not from gear. In the beginning of the game, it was provided by gear, but it's no longer that way. Now it is provided through getting luck, and luck is obtained from various means, usually by salvaging things. So you salvage things and you get luck, and then you use it, and then over time it increases your magic find. If you want to look at your luck, you can go to the achievement panel, and you can go over here to magic find, and you can see, I have, basically if I just get 60 more luck here, then I can increase my magic find from 139% to 140%, okay? So that's definitely something to keep in mind, but it's not something that's super important, except like during Lunar New Year, when magic find is like really useful and you get a lot of luck as well. So there's that. The last one that we have not talked about is the unique one, okay? And I'm actually gonna have to look at my phone for this, because this is I don't know what it is for every class, but I do know what it is for warrior, and that's burst recharge. So burst recharge is going to affect how quickly these skills regenerate, and I don't know why, but I'm running discipline, and it says, let's see, recharge reduce. Yeah, burst skills gain reduced recharge. Recharge reduce is 15%, and so basically the highest it can go, I believe, is just 15%. It's either 15% or 0%. I'm pretty sure that's all it can be. And so it's going to reduce my cooldowns. Do you see these cooldowns are 6 3/4 seconds, whereas the base is 8 seconds. I don't know why it says 0% right there. For Elementalists, I'm going to go across the heavy classes first. For Guardians, it reduces the recharge of your virtues. So they have these 3 unique virtues, and it reduces the recharge of those. Revenants do not have a profession attribute, which kind of amazes me, because I would think that it would like decrease the cooldown on legend swapping, but they do not have a thing. Next, we've got the medium classes, and for thieves, it reduces the recharge for your steal. So thieves are able to like steal skills and use them against whoever they're fighting, and it reduces the recharge. For rangers, it improves your pet attributes. I don't know if that's a percentage base or if it's like a certain amount, raw amount. I don't know, but it improves your pet attributes. It's probably it's always due to some kind of trait. By the way, all these unique mechanics, they're not provided by gear, they're just provided by certain traits. Like I showed you, this this thing in discipline is the only thing that reduces warrior's burst. If you don't have discipline, you're not going to get it. And if you do have discipline, you get it every single time, because it's one of these, I think it's what do they call it, a minor trait? A minor grandmaster trait, I believe. So there's that. And then for engineers, it reduces the cooldown of your tool belt skills. So the engineers have their kits, and I don't know a lot about engineers. I think they have like the kits, and then it reduces the cooldown on those. For necromancers, it increases the size of your life force pool, so you can have a higher maximum thing. For necromancers, it's kind of like a secondary health pool, and they can go into it, and then you get unique skills and everything. And this is going to increase the amount of time that they can stay in that, and then also it increases the maximum. So, and there's also a trait where, like, instead of dying, you go into shroud form, and you're using your life force, and you heal a little bit while you're in shroud, if I remember right. I might be remembering wrong. I'm not a necromancer, guys. Next is Mesmers, and Mesmers get to shatter all their enchantments, all their clones and phantasms and all that crap. I don't know all the terms. They're decoys. I don't know. But they get to shatter it for various effects, and the unique effect would reduce the recharge on those. And then the last one is Elementalists, and as they swap between elemental attunements, those go on recharge. But if you've got the right trait and you've got this unique stat, then it will reduce the recharge on those. Okay, so that is for the profession mechanics, and that is basically all of the attributes. Okay, so now we're going to talk briefly about gear. There are many different types of gear in the game, and I'm actually going to go into my bank for this because I want to show off a couple of different types of gear. First thing I want to talk about is stat sets. All right, and before you're level 80, you get a lot of stat sets that are just simply 1 or 2 attributes. Once you reach level 80, all of your gear better have 3 or 4 attributes. 3 or 4 is basically going to be your choice. However, it should not have 2 or 1, because if it has 2 or 1, then you're doing something wrong. You're not using the level 80 gear. So a stat set is, they have specific names for stat sets, but I won't go over all of those, of course, because there are a lot. I basically will instead just show off the different stat sets that I have. The one that I'm currently wearing is Assassins, which is main stat Precision, and then secondary stats Power and Ferocity. Okay, and people are showing off in the bank, so don't get distracted. So this is basically full glass. It's not increasing my defensiveness at all. There's no extra health, except I'm getting some extra health from other trinkets and everything. But my point is, no extra health, no extra toughness or anything. It's just pure damage. And because of the extra precision, you can actually see that my critical hit chance is 76.66%, which then increases if I increase it more with my Banner of Discipline.
I'm not sure about this.
So there's that. That's the Assassin stat set. All right. Now, Assassins is basically a variant of the, not default, but one of the most widely used stat sets, which is main stat Power and secondary stats Precision and Ferocity. Same principle, but instead of getting the precision, you're just getting more raw damage and power. It's basically up to you what you want to use. The meta Spellbreaker build for raids right now is using kind of a mix of Spellbreakers and Berserkers. Assassins and Berserkers, so you're getting a little bit of extra precision, a little bit of extra critical hit chance. Next, I've got the Harrier Stat Set. Harrier is Power, Healing Power, and Concentration. So this one, for raw damage, then you've got Healing Power, which increases, of course, the amount of heals that you can do, and then Concentration, which is going to increase your boon duration. Okay, so I have that for my build that is focused on regeneration and for supporting other players. So if I grant boons to my nearby allies, then the boons are going to last longer, and if I heal them, which I think I do have an aspect of that build that does heal a little bit, if I heal them, then it's going to heal more because I have extra healing power. We've also got Vipers, as I talked about before. The main stats are Power and Condition damage, and the minor stats are Precision and Expertise. So that is an example of a 4-stat attribute combination. There's also Soldiers, which I talked about earlier, and that is Power, Toughness, Vitality. Notice that there's only one little thing of power. Okay, that's the main stat, but there's no extra critical hit chance. There's no ferocity for extra critical hit damage. So it's a very tanky stat set. There is one that's slightly tankier, and it's the same 3 stats: Power, Toughness, Vitality, but Vitality is then the main one, so you get even more health and even less power. It's called Sentinels, and I thought about maybe using that for my Dolyak Spellbreaker build, but it's too little damage, and already the Dolyak Spellbreaker build does like no damage. So there's that. This is also Assassins, but with a different rune set. We're going to get into rune sets in a very short minute. And then here's another one, which is, I got 2 more to show off. Here's another one, which is Commanders. Commanders is main stats Power and Precision, so you get the power and the critical hits, and then minor stats Toughness and Concentration. So you're getting increased armor, more defense against those raw chunks of damage, and then also some concentration for extra boon duration, which I found very useful for my Inspiring Commander build. Again, you can check out the warrior builds in the description below. The last one that I'm going to show off is called Grieving. It's one of the new ones. Grieving stat set is main stats Power and Condition damage, but minor stats Precision and Ferocity. So similar to Vipers, but instead of Expertise, it's giving you Ferocity. So it's actually, what I've worked out is basically it's good for hybrid builds. It's good for when you want big chunks of raw damage, but you're also inflicting some conditions, and you can inflict the condition damage. You can put that extra little bit of damage on your conditions. So there are many stat sets in the game. It would take me a very long time to go through all of them, so I will not. But instead, I'm going to move on to runes and sigils. By the way, these stat sets can be on armor, and they can also be on weapons. As you can see, I've got this sword, which is precision, power, and condition damage. I've got this one, which is Vipers, so it's the power, condition damage, precision, and expertise. Right, and then I've got this one, Power, Precision, Vitality, and Ferocity is basically the same as Berserkers, but extra Vitality. It's called Marauders. So there is that. I want to talk about runes and sigils, and I actually got some sample runes and sigils because I really wanted to show these off. It's pretty cool to think about. So for some extra bonuses on your gear, this only applies to armor and weapons. Trinkets have different sets of upgrades that can go on them, and I won't really talk too much about those because for the most part they're kind of trivial. They're just extra little stat increases. And once you get to the ascended quality of trinkets, then you can't actually apply them anyway. They don't actually accept the extra attributes, so it's not really worth it to even talk that much about them. Basically, just before you're level 80, just apply them where you get them, and once you get to level 80, work on getting the most effective. That's the same stat set. That being said, the runes and the sigils are something that you can apply to your armor and weapons, respectively, and they will give you special bonuses. Some of them will give you just raw stat bonuses, but sometimes they will give you some other kind of bonus. So let's go over here to this rune of the eagle. We've got minor, major, and superior runes and sigils, and the minor has no level requirement. Major has the level requirement of 39, so if you're below level 39, or if you have gear that's below level 39, then you can't apply it. And then superior requires level 60. Okay, but so let's talk about each one. Basically, the runes, the minor runes are going to give you bonuses that are very, very small and only going to give you bonus, like adding bonuses for having them on 2 pieces of armor. Runes are pretty cool because they give you a special bonus the more of that same rune type that you have on your armor. Currently I do have runes of the eagle, and that's why I bought them, because they're pretty cheap and it's cool to show them off. Currently I do have runes of the eagle, and you can say that I'm getting the full bonus. Okay, you can see that it says 1. If you just have 1 minor rune of the eagle, all you're going to get is plus 10 precision. If you have 2 minor runes of the eagle, you're going to get the precision and then also some ferocity. Okay. Next, we've got the major runes, and now as you can see, these are higher numbers. So instead of getting 10 precision and 14 ferocity, you're getting 15 precision and 21 ferocity. And then you get an extra bonus to precision and ferocity, higher bonuses, if you get it on 4 pieces of armor instead of 2. Okay? And lastly, we have the superior ones, which you can put on all 6 pieces of your armor, which are, it's going to give you, in this case of superior runes of the eagle, it's going to give you precision, ferocity, and then the final boost is 6% damage against targets, 6% extra damage against targets with less than half health. So there are many different runes, have many different kinds of bonuses. I've got, for my soldier gear, for my tanky build, the runes of the Dolyak make you regenerate health every second. For my commander build, you've got extra boon duration, and then when you use a heal skill, all nearby allies are also healed. I've got runes of the scholar, which makes you do plus 10% damage when your health is above 90%. And then of course, for the conditions, we've got the superior runes of the renegade, which do an extra, just flat 7% extra condition damage when you have all 6. So they do a wide variety of different things. So when you're crafting a build, you definitely want to keep in mind, you know, what rune set am I going to use? And definitely it's almost never ever worth it to use multiple different rune sets. You just want to choose one rune set and just go with it, and then use that on all of your pieces of armor. And last, we have sigils, and it's basically the same thing with armor, except armor runes, except that it's going to give you just a flat bonus, and you don't get another bonus for having it on both of your weapons. Or if you have 2 of the same type of sigil on the same 2-handed weapon, you can't do that. Instead, it's just a flat bonus to your weapons. So in this case, I have the Sigils of Accuracy. The minor one gives you 3% critical chance, the major one gives you 5% critical chance, and the superior one gives you 7%. I'm actually using the Superior Sigil of Accuracy on my dagger. Okay, another example is the Superior Sigil of Severance. That's kind of a complicated sigil to go into, but I will say that when you interrupt an enemy, you gain precision and ferocity. It's kind of a cool little bonus. You've got, for hammers, this is really good to get the Superior Sigil of Paralyzation for extra stun duration, or the Superior Sigil of Impact, which is plus 10% damage against stunned or knocked down foes, right? something that's very useful to keep in mind. Definitely take a look at the different sigils that are available while you're making your build, and that way you can optimize things so everything goes okay. So that being said, I mean, the only things that are really left are just the minor upgrades that you can get, like crests and jewels and everything. And those are just, like I said, flat stat sets. Once you get ascended rings and all these accessories and everything, you don't need to worry about the upgrades. They're not even that potent, even with the upgrades on exotics. Oh, and the last thing I am going to cover, since we're talking about the armor and weapons, is the rarity. Okay, and for that, I'm actually going to head over to this weapon and armor smith, and I'm going to show you basic gear, and you're actually going to see the difference in my legendary breastplate and a base level 80 basic breastplate. So let's talk to this guy. And this is level 80 armor, but it's white. You can see that it's white, which means it's basic. Now look at this. The basic is only giving you 219 defense. In addition, it is berserkers. Okay, it's power, precision, ferocity, but you can see how much less of a bonus that you're getting for the stats. Only 81 for the major attribute, whereas on this one it's 141 on the one I'm wearing. So 219 versus 381 is a huge difference. And then, you know, of course we've got this, and, you know, we've got the difference between basic and exotic. I'm going to talk very briefly about the tiers of gear. And that is, I'm going to go to the trading post for this, and we're going to go to armor, okay? And we're just going to look at this, all right? So this gives you a pretty good idea of the tiers of gear. So we've got basic, which is white. We've got fine, which is blue. It's a little bit better, okay? And I can't really show you any examples here. It would take a long time. But we've got the fine, which is blue. Masterwork is green, and rare is yellow. And that is actually a lot of the time, if you're under level 80, you want to use rare gear. Probably it's going to require, like, I don't know, level 60 or something like that. But it's good to use when you're below level 80. When you reach level 80, you need to get exotic, okay? Because there's a big jump between rare and exotic. When it comes to ascended and legendary, first of all, there's no difference between ascended and legendary, so don't worry about that insane grind to get a legendary weapon, legendary armor, legendary back piece. Don't worry about it. The ascended is exactly the same, okay? And also keep in mind that between exotic and ascended, I believe it's only like a 5% boost in stats. So seriously, don't worry about it. It's really just, you don't even have to even pay attention to it. Exotic works just fine. Basically the main reason for getting ascended is if you absolutely want best in slot, and also if you want to do fractals, because ascended is the only armor that can hold armor and weapons that can hold infusions, and infusions give you agony resistance, okay? And that's a whole different video. Basically it's talking about fractals and stuff. But there you have it. That's my video talking about stats and gear. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of these, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much to my patron, my very first patron, Sen. If you want to become a patron, then the link to my Patreon is down in the description below. Thank you once again so much for watching, and I will see you next time.